Howdy, y'all, and welcome back. It's the the weekly wrap up for Friday, August 20th, 2021. I hope everyone is having a fantastic week. It's been pretty nice here. It's very sunny today with cool weather. It's maybe 70 degrees. So after I finish this up, I'm going to go spend some time outside doing some chores. Got to get rid of some stuff out of the garage. And anyways, so let's go ahead and jump into the news of the week. So let me go ahead and share my screen. So, all right. Well, let's look at first trading economics. Let's see, the week U.S. stocks rally but booked a weekly losses. So that's kind of a flat week looking across the indexes. We'll get into that in a minute. Oil sets longest losing streak since 2019. I guess that's a good thing. I've noticed that the oil prices have been going down. They're in the 60s, as far as Brent and West Texas International. So dollar strengthens 1%. I noticed that too. The dollar index rose up to 93.5 this week. So, a strengthening dollar is obviously good. I don't know necessarily if that's a sign of a long-term sign of stability in the dollar. We've talked a lot about the dollar creation over the last year, and also the just the amount of inflation we've seen. So time will tell. Maybe the Fed will pull their head down their ass and get their shit together, but I doubt it. All right, let's go ahead and move on to, let's take a look at the indexes. And let me share my window. Share. Stop. Sorry about this. Share screen. All right. Okay. There we go. All right, so now you can see my chart here. All right, so it looks like the Dow Jones this week was down by, what was that, about 1.09%. The S&P 500 down about 0.42. The NASDAQ not down too much, a tenth of a percent. Let's look at the Dow Transports. That doesn't look very good. Down about 2.5%. And the Dow Utilities look pretty good. They're up 1.33. So across the board, at least domestically, it looks like that most things were fairly flat or maybe slightly down. I'll be curious to see what the numbers for the international markets were on Monday. Excuse me. All right, so let me go ahead and stop that and go back to, come on, share screen, and go back to, where are we? Here we are. All right. So as far as jobless claims this week, initial jobless claims came in at 348,000. We were forecasting 363,000, so not too bad. Slightly under the forecast, which is always a good thing when it comes to jobless claims. Let's take a look at last week's numbers. We came in at 375. It was revised up to 377. Fairly close. All right, continuing jobless claims. They came in at 2,820,000, just 20,000 over the forecast. Let's take a peek at last week. 2,866 was revised up to 2,899, which put it over last week's forecast. So it was at about 30,000. Not the end of the world, but again, what I'm looking at is this long-term trend of this graph. You see how it's trending down. That's certainly a good thing. Retail sales numbers came out this month. Quite a bit off. Retail sales were down 1.1%. The forecast was only supposed to be down 0.3. So it's kind of a big miss. Looking back, it's kind of been up and down. have a negative month, positive month, negative month. I mean, April was a huge boom, but other than that, I don't really see. February was quite large, but the rest of the months look flat pretty much. All right, and I know I've been talking a lot about oil prices and the inflation that we're seeing at the gas pump. I believe that the rig count is a major driver behind that. Again, if we look back here in 2000, beginning of late 2019, early 2020, we were at 700, 600 rigs pumping oil. When things cut off so badly, we dropped down under 200, and so essentially since the bottom, what was that, last July and August when the rig count was so low. So in a year, we were up over 400 now. So, I'd pay attention to this if the rig count gets back up to 600-700 and your fuel prices haven't adjusted. I would assume that you're being price gouged at that point. So, anyways, all right. So I had a couple of things that some media articles I wanted to share with folks, just so that things I found interesting this week. The first one was an article from The Hill. It's actually from, I think, last week on the 9th, if I recall. I don't see. Oh, yeah, right here, August 9th. Written by Mark Warshawski. Sorry if I mispronounced your name, Mark. He's talking about, it's titled, "If Plans to Cut IRAs Succeed, the Middle Class Will Be Collateral Damage." And essentially, let me just start out. Quoting him, Senate Finance Committee Chair Ron Wyden and House Ways and Means Chair Richard Neal are working on legislation to limit the size of IRAs over $5 million. Media accounts have reported that this effort could be part of a search for funding the $3.5 trillion human infrastructure legislation. The move is also, per Wyden, a direct reaction to investigative reports by ProPublica, based on leaked individual tax returns revealing that the highly fortunate capital appreciation of newly issued stock held in Roth IRAs of one particular billionaire. I think we talked about this a while back. So I think it was Peter Thiel did a Roth conversion, and they're all pissed off because they can't tax that money. Continuing again, limiting billion-dollar IRAs despite the policy's visceral appeal will not produce that much more revenue on a sustained basis because there are so few. So the outrage is now being transferred to more numerous IRAs holding millions, as shown in statistics on IRAs requested from the Joint Committee on Taxation. What the course demanding reform does not realize is that the commonplace government pensions, which are allowed by law with no proposals for change and largely not controversial, are easily worth those sorts of amounts. Next paragraph, considering, for example, a 55-year-old police chief for a large city earning $290,000 a year. Let's assume he has 32 years less 3 months of service, and he has been chief for 3 years. He decides to retire now at full retirement age of his municipality's pension plan, age 55 or 30 years of service. So there's no reduction in his payout for early retirement, with a 2.5% annual accrual rate, basically a COLA. His annual benefit will be $230 at the current IRS benefit limit on a defined benefit pension. So, as is typical in state and local government employee pension plans, the benefit gets a cost of living adjustment tied to inflation. Moreover, the benefits continue for the rest of his life, and then continue at 2/3 of the amount of the life of his wife, who, let's say, is 52 years old. At current negative real interest rates, the Treasury tips market on the 10-year bond, and using current mortality rates published by the IRS, by my calculation, a pension is worth $10 million. Where's the outrage on this amount? It's rich for public service, but these senior positions entail a career of difficult work, and so far the resulting pensions are unremarked upon. So essentially what they're trying to do is, let me see if it goes goes into further detail here. Let's further continue. Where's the details on this? I forget. Essentially, what they want to do is, any amount in excess of $5 million, they want it to be distributed, basically as an RMD. And, I don't know. I see this as really, unfair. You change the tax rules after the fact. You set these tax havens up for people to take advantage of, which I recommend to most clients. Take advantage of IRAs and Roths and municipal bond, whatever you can do to reduce your tax burden. And now, because the government is close to $30 trillion in debt, they're like, well, let's go ahead and screw the Americans out of the money that they saved. So I'm not in favor of this. I'll attach the hyperlink here in the show notes so that you can go ahead and read this yourself. So, all right. And then the last thing I had is from the Tom Wood Show, one of my favorite podcasts to listen to. He had Scott Horton, one of his regular guests on the show. Scott is an expert on all things Middle East. He runs the Libertarian Institute, and he basically knows everything there is to know about, the difference between the Taliban and Al Qaeda, and the Sunnis and the Shias and the Kurds. And I mean, he just, it can get quite confusing to the layman, and Scott is excellent on it. So we're going to take a second and listen to a portion of their conversation, and then we'll go ahead and wrap things up. So let's take a minute and listen to Tom and Scott talk about the the title of this episode is Scott Horton on what just happened in Afghanistan. So I'm sure a lot of y'all out there are scratching your heads. Maybe you're pointing fingers at Biden or Trump or whoever. So let's go ahead and take a listen.
Right. Yeah. I was just looking at an article in Newsweek. And of course, Newsweek is not the magazine it used to be. It's just like apparently any old person can write an article for Newsweek these days. But they were citing the Costs of War project at Brown University.
Right.
And saying as of April, the U.S. has spent $2.261 trillion on the war in Afghanistan. Now, it depends on how you calculate what do you include in there. Biden in his speech said $1 trillion, but let's round it down to $2 trillion. That comes out to an absolutely staggering $273 million a day. Now, if it's $1 trillion, then that's $137 million a day, every day, for 20 years. So the average person who doesn't have the background knowledge of a Scott Horton, who literally wrote the book on the war in Afghanistan, will just look at that one fact. Think $273 million, somewhere between $137 and $273 million a day for 20 years. That's almost all the person needs to know, because after you've spent that money and the government collapses instantly, the giant fighting force you've supposedly trained runs away or disintegrates. Why would you think that staying an extra year or 5 years or another, more and more hundreds of millions of dollars a day is going to change anything about that? This, to me, exposes the whole apparatus, the whole foreign policy expertise, all the think tanks, all the people involved, all the contractors. How could this possibly be more of a fiasco? What could you have worse than this that would make the American people think, maybe we better not listen to these people next time? Maybe they're just all on the take. Yep. I mean, it's kind of a rhetorical question. I don't even know what I'm expecting of you there, Scott, but just whatever your thoughts are.
Yeah, look, I mean, as I often say, usually when criticizing the cops, but also when I'm criticizing the national government on foreign policy stuff, this is your security force, right? That's who these people claim to be at the baseline. If it wasn't for us, who would protect you from the danger? That's why they're here. And yet they're the ones who gave everyone cancer with all their thermonuclear testing in the atmosphere. And they're the ones who created the international Islamist brigades that have been turned against us and all of our friends and allies across the world for a generation now. They're the ones who created every crisis that they exploit for even more power. And yet, the Washington Post ran a thing. They must have changed the headline by now, Tom. But yesterday, they referred to these people, I'll elaborate in a second, as America's warrior class. And then when they described them, who are they talking about? A bunch of generals, a bunch of soft-handed generals who've never been in a fight, and a bunch of big, fat think tank idiots who also don't really know anything about the military at all or war, but have these ridiculous strategies that the arms dealers pay them to write. And, you look at Michelle Flournoy, for example, who, as the head of CNAS, helped lobby so hard to push Barack Obama to do the surge of 2009 through 12, and then got the job as Deputy Secretary of Defense for Policy implementing it. And then she wants to tell the Washington Post in 2021, geez, we got there and they were great people to work with everywhere, but geez, we just were surprised at just how deep the corruption went. They're pouring, when you talk about that $2 trillion, that's cash money just being handed out to, of course, the most ruthless who are willing to do anything to get at the head of the line to get that money. The Americans were the single most corrupting influence in this desperately poor and corrupt country. And Michelle Flournoy wants to pretend like, oh, yeah, no, it would have worked great if only for that one thing that kind of screwed us up. Hillary Clinton did this in the debates when they mentioned Libya to her. And she went on and on about how that was all Barack Obama's call, not hers. And she might have advised him to do it, but still, he's the one who did it. Who am I? I'm just Secretary of State. I don't know what you're talking about. And then at the end, she says, well, and also the Libyans who refused to accept the wonderful opportunity that we had granted them or something like that. They just cannot accept responsibility for their failures whatsoever. And so then they continue to make them. At this point, though, I mean, look, this is what led to the rise of Trump in the first place, right? Was they told us you're going to pick between George Bush's brother and Bill Clinton's wife. And that's who you're going to get to choose from. It's these people who've ruined everything. And of course, Biden is a bit of the backlash from the backlash there. But overall, the American people are absolutely burnt out and fed up with these people and their mismanaged economy and their multiple ridiculously lost and failed foreign wars. And it's just the overwhelming aspect of...
Go ahead and stop that there. Scott is a brilliant man and based out of Austin, fellow Texan like myself. And I would definitely suggest, reading his work, following him at the Libertarian Institute. He's a good person. And if you can throw him a few bucks as far as a contributor, I'd certainly recommend that. He does amazing work for very little. So, but that's everything that I had for today. Please like, share, and subscribe. And if you need anything from me, feel free to give me a call, shoot me an email, send me some smoke signals, and I'll be happy to get back to you as soon as I can. So, hope everyone has a fantastic weekend. Go out, get some sunlight, get some exercise, eat healthy. That's what I do. That's how I stay fit and trim and keep the cooties away from me so that I don't get any sniffles. And talk to everyone on Monday. Bye-bye.